Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do the recap of a Japanese psychological thriller film, Cure. This movie, released in 1997, has been one of the best works of its genre. Here, the story focuses on a detective and his psychiatrist friend who embark on a journey to stop evil. However, they end up losing much more than what they bargained for. So, let's get right into it. The film begins with a woman named Fumi who has dementia, attending a doctor's appointment where she recites passages from a book called Bluebeard. Even though she's still in the middle of the story, she appears to know how it ends, with the Bluebeard being murdered by his wife. Following that, we meet the protagonist, Kenichi Takabe, a detective on his way to the crime scene where a new murder has occurred. When he looks into it, he discovers that a man named Kuwano has murdered the prostitute he spent the night with in cold blood, leaving a cross mark on her body. However, as he searches further, he discovers him in a nearby storage cabinet, all naked and curled up. Interrogating him with his psychiatrist friend, Makoto Sakuma, they discover that this case is similar to other bizarre murders occurring around Tokyo, in which the suspects admit to killing and appear to be repenting their sins, but have no recollection of how or why they did so. There have already been 3 such cases in the last 2 months, and while the perpetrators and victims' faces have changed, the brutality and the haunting cross sign left behind have not. While Takabe ponders the motives behind these murders, which appear to have no connection other than the cross marks, Sakuma claims that the devil made them do it. He further points out that even though people think that a crime has some reason and meaning behind it, most of the time it doesn't. In the next scene, we come across Toru Hanaoka, an elementary school teacher who appears to be minding his own business until he's approached by a strange man who seems to have lost his memories, having no idea of who or where he is, and he keeps asking repetitive questions. Taking pity on the amnesiac man, Hanaoka decides to help him, and takes him home where he suggests that the man's name could be Mamiya, as imprinted on his jacket. He also requests that Mamiya contact the police for help, but Mamiya declines. Though Hanaoka makes every effort to help Mamiya regain his memories, Mamiya appears to be more interested in Hanaoka and his wife's lives. Hanaoka is initially suspicious of Mamiya's intentions, but eventually succumbs to the mesmerizing flames flickering on Mamiya's lighter, allowing himself to be engulfed by the fire of hypnosis, leaving him dazed. As the story progresses, we learn that Fumi is Takabe's wife. As they settle for dinner, Takabe suggests that they go on a trip after the case is over. He also asks her to choose the destination for the trip, which she agrees to. The next day, Takabe is informed of another murder, as it is revealed that Hanaoka has murdered his wife, Tomoko, and then attempted suicide, but he is now saved. After questioning him, Takabe and Sakuma discover that this case is similar to the others. The victim's arteries have been cut in a similar manner, leaving a cross mark behind, and the perpetrator has no idea why he did so, seemingly devastated by the ordeal. When they press Hanaoka for more information, they discover that killing his wife seemed natural to him at the time. Takabe is taken aback by this and wonders if it is truly the work of the devil. He continues to discuss his theory with Sakuma, telling him that it could be some kind of repressed childhood trauma that finally exploded. However, Sakuma appears unsure, stating that it may or may not be the case because it is difficult to understand what truly motivates a criminal. Sometimes even the criminal appears to be unaware of that. Sakuma then inquires about Fumi's condition, to which Takabe responds skeptically, stating that while he is sending her to the doctor, he is uncertain of whether or not her condition is improving. Sakuma also advises Takabe not to go too far with the investigation, as he expresses his concerns about him, but Takabe shrugs it off, saying he is just doing his job. Afterwards, we see a police officer named Oeda, who notices Mamiya sitting on the edge of a rooftop, but before he can help him, Mamiya jumps off the roof, spraining his ankle. Upon finding Mamiya strange, Oeda decides to take him under custody and brings him to the police box. There, he tries to question him about his identity, but fails. He eventually gives up and agrees to let the station gather information on him. He further assures Mamiya that he will take him to the hospital to get him checked. They share cigarettes, and just as Oeda lets his guard down, Mamiya takes advantage of it and hypnotizes him with the same flicker of his lighter. On the other hand, Takabe and Sakuma are discussing hypnosis as a method of killing, calling it hypnotic suggestion. Sakuma tells Takabe that though hypnotism is common, one cannot hypnotize someone to do things against their morals. He further points out that inducing someone to carve a specific pattern, such as a cross sign, is a difficult skill to master, but it is not impossible and can only be done by a genius hypnotist. Next, we witness Oeda killing his colleague under the influence of hypnosis, as he proceeds to carve a cross mark on his body with a cutter. While Fumi is having another appointment with a doctor, where she seems to have forgotten everything about the book Bluebeard. Meanwhile, Mamiya is sent to the hospital, where he meets a female doctor named Akiko, who wanted to be a surgeon but ended up becoming a general doctor after being subjected to male chauvinism. Grasping the hold of Akiko's instilled hatred towards the opposite gender, Mamiya manages to get into her head, hypnotizing her to set free from this unfair world, leaving a black cross mark painted on the wall. As Oeda's murder gets reported, Takabe and Sakuma go to interrogate him, where they find out that Oeda killed his colleague because he hated him and couldn't stand him anymore. He also admits that it was not an impulsive act, but rather a very calm one. Finding it strange, they try to look for the signs of hypnosis on him, and manage to get some clues. Later, another murder occurs when Akiko kills someone in the public toilet, carving the cross sign on the body as she dissects the skin apart. On his way to the crime scene, Takabe learns about Mamiya, a suspicious person who seems to have a connection with both Oeda and Akiko. Desperate not to lose the only trail leading to these gruesome murders, Takabe orders a search of the hospital and eventually captures Mamiya. During the inquiry, Takabe shows Mamiya the photos of all the suspects, but he refuses to recognize them. He even fails to identify himself as he continues to annoy Takabe. While the detective struggles to get something out of Mamiya, he, on the other hand, manages to irritate him by repeatedly questioning him about his life, making him aggressive and violent. Seeing things getting out of control, Sakuma drags Takabe out of the interrogation room as he tries to calm him down. He further informs him that he will be taking Mamiya under his care because he has observed some alarming signs of psychological instability in him. Later that night, Takabe returns home only to find Fumi missing. In a panic, he rushes out to find her, only to meet her on an abandoned road as she tells him that she got lost while shopping for their trip. She further admits that she is aware that he is tired of her, and that they do not have to go on the trip, but Takabe denies everything and comforts her by promising to take her on the trip on his next holiday. The next day, in the police station, Takabe seizes Mamiya's belongings and finds a huge burn mark on his back. Further investigation leads them to Mamiya's house in a junkyard, where he worked as a live-in part-timer and probably got his burn scar. On searching his house, he discovers some caged animals and tons of books on psychotherapy. He also finds several books mentioning mesmer, through which he comes across a term called mesmerism, which is an old form of hypnosis. Upon discovering Mamiya to be a psychology student, Takabe tries to put the puzzle pieces together. However, things get clear when he comes across the shocking sight of a monkey's skull tied to a pipe in his bathroom, with the same cross mark carved on it. He shares all these details with Sakuma, but as he's about to leave for the station, he gets a strange feeling about Fumi and rushes back home to check on her. There he finds her, hanging by the ceiling, dead. Takabe's heart is shattered by Fumi's death as he sobs in front of her dangling body. However, he soon realizes that it was a hallucination and Fumi is still alive. Takabe is already frustrated when he arrives at the police station, and learning that Sakuma has transferred Mamiya to his mental hospital to keep him away from Takabe only adds to his fury. But he still manages to meet Mamiya in his hospital cell, where he claims that since he has gathered enough evidence from his house, he will press charges against him for hypnotizing people into murder, and will put an end to his crimes. On the other hand, Mamiya appears unconcerned. Instead, he questions Takabe about his hallucinations, and comments on how difficult it must be for him to care for his ailing wife. He further points out that, to survive, Takabe is living two different lives, one as a detective, and the other as a husband. However, neither of them is his true self. Frustrated enough, Takabe finally lashes out as he admits that his wife is indeed a burden to him. He further emphasizes how difficult it is to be a detective because he is taught not to show his emotions to anyone, not even his family, which in turn destroyed his relationship with his wife. Getting agitated, he adds that it is not only his fault, but also the fault of insane people like Mamiya, who continue to live in a world of obliviousness while sane people like him suffer. Eventually, he admits that though he can forgive his wife, he will never forgive Mamiya. Unfazed and rather fascinated by Takabe's sudden outburst, Mamiya compliments him and calls him amazing. While Takabe, after getting everything out of his system, requests that Mamiya tell him his entire story as well. However, it soon begins to rain and the water begins to seep inside the cell, dripping through the ceiling, bringing their confrontation to a halt. However, before Takabe leaves, Mamiya declares to him that soon he too will be set free. Coming out of the cell, Takabe beats the officer on duty for telling Mamiya about his personal life. Later, we find Sakuma and Takabe discussing Mesmer, an 18th century doctor who was the first to use hypnosis at a time when it was considered witchcraft and a delusion. Sakuma also informs him that Mamiya suffers from amnesia and has a complex personality. He warns him to keep his distance from Mamiya, fearing the consequences. In the following scene, we see Mamiya being taken for further questioning by the board members of the police headquarters, where he continues to talk in circles and enrages one of the officers named Fujiwara by repeatedly asking him who he is. He further whispers to Takabe, telling him that he is unique and different from the others, because he is the only one who clearly hears his voice and understands what he truly means. Back at home, Takabe realizes that Fumi's condition isn't improving, which bothers him and makes him want to kill her. Though he manages to stop himself, fearing his growing desire, he decides to send her away to the mental hospital for the time being. Afterwards, Sakuma calls Takabe to his house where he shows him an old hypnosis video clip of a woman named Suzumarakawa who was being treated for her hysteria and ended up killing her son in a similar manner, i.e. by carving a cross mark on his body. In the video, the unknown hypnotist appears to be hypnotizing the lady by making a cross with his hands. Sakuma connects this to the present-day murders, believing it to be the origin of the chaos. During the discussion, however, Sakuma unconsciously falls into a hallucination in which he finds himself trapped in Mamiya's cell, being cornered by Takabe. Takabe somehow manages to pull him out of his trance, but it soon becomes clear that Sakuma too has fallen victim to Mamiya's hypnosis and is gradually losing his mind as he draws a cross on his wall and refers to him as a missionary. Later, we learn that Mamiya has escaped from the hospital. Meanwhile, Sakuma is reported to have committed suicide in his home. Regardless of the news, Takabe remains unusually calm. Next, we see Takabe at the old abandoned house where the video clip was shot. Soon after, Mamiya also arrives and seems delighted to find Takabe there, as it is revealed that it was actually him who let Mamiya escape. He continues to emphasize that it is their destiny to come to this house in order to discover their true selves. But before he can continue, Takabe shoots all his bullets at him, killing him on the spot. Afterwards, he discovers an old gramophone in the house with a cryptic message recorded on it. Soon after, we realize that Fumi has also been killed in the hospital by a nurse in a similar manner, while Takabe appears to be enjoying a delicious dinner at the restaurant, completely relaxed, as if he has been cured of all his worries. The movie mysteriously ends with the waitress who was serving Takabe suddenly falling into a trance and grabbing a knife while he smokes in peace. I hope you all enjoyed this recap. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Feel free to check out our other videos. See you in the next movie recap.